a dearer place in my heart than our annual Veterans Day Assembly. The focus of our assembly today is service, and today we'd like to recognize the many ways in which our servicemen and women make our communities both safe and strong. One of the things that we value most about Jack and Middle School is the respect that we show our guests at assemblies such as this. Our attitudes and our actions say a lot about who we are as a school and who we are as individuals. And they have long been a source of pride for both our students and staff. I fully expect that our long tradition of respect and exemplary behavior will continue throughout the assembly today. At this point, I ask that you rise for the posting of the colors by agreeing with Memorial Post 987. And we ask that you remain standing as the jazz band and wind choir lead us in our national anthem.
JYMS teacher and former Army combat medic, also mother to a current and some former students. Specialist Megan Collins, U.S. Army National Guard, currently serving with the Delta 132 out of Madison. Mr. Fred Cole-Morgan. Fred leads our custodial staff here at JYMS. Before joining us, he served with the Air Force for 20 years. He retired as a Master Sergeant after serving in both domestic foreign hosts. Also on our staff that are veterans are Ms. Megan Ray, who served with the Air Force, and Mrs. Ricarda Adams, who served with the Navy. I would also like to recognize and thank the gentleman from Greenwood Memorial Post 987. These men have not only served our country, but do such a service to our community and our schools. Please join me in thanking all of our veterans. Veterans Day is a day set aside to honor all who have served in any branch of service in times of war and peace. Here to share a bit more about this history are 8th graders Ethan Mattoon, Joe Bullock, and Eva Hucker.
In 1918, World War I ended. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the entire world celebrated. An armistice, a truce, was signed, declaring the war to end all wars was finally over. The next year, on November 11th, the U.S. called the day Armistice Day, in memory of all the men and women who served in World War I. On Armistice Day, surviving soldiers marched in parades through their hometowns. Politicians and veteran officers gave speeches and held ceremonies in thanks for the speech that had, for the peace that had been won.
Poppies, which are bright red flowers, became a symbol of Veterans Day after the bloody World War I battle in Flanders Field in Belgium. The soil in the battlefield became scattered with rubble, leaving the soil rich, lime, mineral, and not. Poppies thrive in the fertile soil. Many soldiers were buried in Flanders Field, creating a contrast with white crosses and vibrant red lines. Major John McCrae was a Canadian surgeon who was moved by the sight of this, leading him to pen one of the most memorable war poems ever written in Flanders Field.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we're glad in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Ethan, Joe, and Eva. We also have the distinct honor of welcoming an individual who has dedicated countless hours to service of veterans. Mr. Steve Argo is a staff member of the Baraboo High School who has been engaging students in the community in honoring our Baraboo veterans for many years. Please join me in welcoming one of our guest speakers, Mr. Steve Argo.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's always good to be amongst veterans. I like to say that veterans are the best thing about the best country in the world. That puts them in a really exclusive category for me. Since about 2014, I've been involved in a local project here in Baraboo, trying to raise $100,000 to build what I believe is a long overdue memorial to a very important group of people at the time of World War I. not particular U.S. veterans, but members of the British Royal Navy, who in the space of 3 hours saved the lives of almost 2,000 Americans that were aboard a sinking ship. I'm not going to talk about that today because that's an altogether different story somewhat. But I do want to bring this to the bigger issue of who are veterans, what are veterans, why we have this day, and why is it important. In the course of the last couple of years, as I reached out to the veteran community here in Baraboo, I've come across a number of amazing people who fought in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, of recent years in the Persian Gulf. And I want to just tell you a quick story about one of these men that I met this last summer. His name is Dean Du Bois. He lives here at Baraboo over on Camp Street, over by the Quick Trip on the east side. He's one of these guys, one of these veterans that when you talk to him, the first words out of his mouth are, I didn't do anything important. It was nothing. I was just doing what I was told to do. In World War II, Dean was a lower-ranking naval personnel aboard a very nondescript ship that operated in the Central Pacific. It wasn't a big, fancy warship. He wasn't involved in any big battles like Guadalcanal or Iwo Jima. His ship's mission basically was to go roam about the waters in the Central Pacific and pick up down pilots who had to bail out of their airplane or the plane had gone down. And they were in kind of a rescue mission. And his job on the ship was kind of boring, he says. Day after day, kind of a monotonous thing, really. And I was trying to like pull some information out of him and ask about what kind of experience he had altogether in World War II. Did he ever see the action of any kind or experience anything, that stayed with him? And he's sitting in his seat, in his couch, looking out his front window at his mailbox on Camp Street. His wife, Colleen, is sitting next to him. And he kind of paused. I think he had told this story once before. And I said, I think as I was probing for information, I said, did you ever have an experience with a kamikaze attack? Most of you, I'm guessing, are familiar with the kamikaze, these suicide planes the Japanese used toward the end of the war when they were very desperate. And they were very lethal because once these airplanes crashed onto the decks of American ships, they would cause all kinds of explosions. In many, many cases, ships sunk. Hundreds of people died in these incidents. And he says, he then relates a story of the kamikaze one day, the spring of 1945, that was zeroing in on his ship. And he's talking to me, looking at me, and he uses his hand as a kind of makeshift plane. And he said that was coming right at us. I could see it, clearly just coming right at us, point blank. And so I let him continue. And I said, well, what happened? And he did. He says, right before the plane hit, our big anti-aircraft gunners opened up. Bada, 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 bada. And I saw the plane, he says, I saw the plane crash into the ocean right next to us. And then he mimics the pilot slumped over. And in that few minutes that he's telling me the story, it's like his life was transported back to that time when his whole life was kind of frozen around this one incident. And I forget what he said next, in a sense, but I think what he was trying to say as he held his hand out to hold Colleen, if I could channel him for a second, what he was trying to say to me was, if the bullet that killed the pilot had been an inch too far to one side, that pilot would have lived, his airplane would have crashed onto the deck of our ship, setting off all kinds of explosions, And very likely, Mr. Argo, I would have died, and 400 or 500 of my, fellow seamen, sailors, also would have died. That was 70 years ago. He didn't die. They didn't die. He came home, a young man, got married, had kids, bought a house, had a career, did all kinds of interesting things for 70 years. Got to go deer hunting in November. Got to go to Lambeau Field to watch the Packers play in the Ice Bowl. He lived a full life, all because one bullet was too far to one side. It didn't kill that Japanese pilot. He says to me, I'm not a hero. I just got lucky. As I think about veterans today, and guys like Dean Du Bois, I think about that story a lot. Because these guys, what is a veteran is someone who basically says, I will go anywhere, I will go any place, I will do anything for any duration of time. I'll do whatever's necessary when asked by my government to defend the idea of liberty. That's basically it. It's a big idea. But I hope as you go through today and hear some of the other speakers, you'll think about this level of self-sacrifice that veterans, people in the armed forces sort of like hold dear to. And if I may, I think there's another group of people that also, I'm hoping, are also part of our recognition of veterans today. And that would be the police, the fire, the first responders. Because as folks in the military, it's great. I'm a veteran, but it's great to get this kind of, acclamation sometime. But I think we have to honor these guys as well. Because when you get down to it, this ethic of public service that police, fire, and first responders hold on to is every bit as important and as sacred as how the military looks at service to one's country. Service above self. Service above self is the trademark, I think, by which veterans hold on to and cling on to. So I wish you all the best. I'm guessing in a couple of years, I'll see a couple of you guys at the high school. I teach sophomores and juniors mainly. But again, please think about the words you hear today from these guys, and really remember to thank the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for your words. I love that message, service above self. And thank you for all you do for our community. Mrs. Kozlowski and the Wind Choir will now share a moving tribute to our veterans by singing On Veterans Day by Carl Hickson.
Today we are very honored to have a very special guest speaker who is returning to our middle school. He's not only a veteran, but he's also a veteran of our school community. Major Matthew McDonald is an active duty member of the Wisconsin National Guard. He is currently serving as an operations officer for the 32nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team. He has served 2 tours in Iraq and has been awarded 2 Bronze Stars for meritorious service during combat. Most recently, he traveled to Florida with the Guard in order to help communities that were devastated by Hurricane Irma. I'd like to introduce to you, or I should say reintroduce to you, Major Matthew McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Cannell. Thank you to the community here at Jack Young Middle School. It's an honor and privilege to have returned. I'd also like to say thank you to my fellow veterans in attendance here today. And the words that Mr. Argo shared with us today, I think some of the ideas that you talked about are some of the things I'm going to talk about as well here today. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here to represent the 10,000 men and women, soldiers and airmen of the Wisconsin Army and Air National Guard on Veterans Day. November 11th, 2017 marked the 99th observance of Veterans Day, or as it was originally called, Armistice Day. It was on November 11th, 1918 that the supposed war to end all wars concluded. So 2017 marks 100 years since the U.S. entered that war. Of course, we know, sadly, World War I did not end all wars. In fact, it persisted. It resulted in an even deadlier global conflict just 20 years later that claimed the lives of tens of millions more people worldwide. A little historical note, Specialist Collins and I wear the red arrow representing the 32nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team on our shoulders, as you can see. The red arrow, as we call ourselves, this name came to us when in 1917, thousands of men from Wisconsin and Michigan joined up to form the 32nd Infantry Division. They shipped down to Texas, where they trained together before heading overseas to Europe, where they were participants in many crucial battles in World War I, fighting the Germans and pushing them back into Germany. In fact, the name Red Arrow came from their success in World War I. They were said to have pierced German lines like a red arrow. So the red arrow piercing the horizontal stripe is where that comes from. Also, the French general commented and called the 32nd Infantry Division Les Terribles, which means the terrible ones. Which doesn't mean they were bad, it means they were really ferocious and fighting in combat. So on this Veterans Day, we take the time to honor those members of our past and remember all those who had the courage and fortitude to swear an oath to serve this great nation. So what is it that drives young men and women to answer the call to serve? Why? During the prime of their lives, when they could do anything they wanted, they continue to stand up and say, "Send me," when their nation asks, "Who will go?" There are a select and noble few of this great nation who are willing to do just that, because they believe in what America stands for and what it means to people around the world. The United States is a beacon of hope in a troubled world, and it's been our armed forces, generation after generation, continue to advance the American idea worldwide: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mrs. McDonald told me that this year's Assembly's theme was service, and asked me to speak a little bit on service. So these days, when we hear, "Thank you for your service," I think we can all agree that we're almost certainly hearing words directed to somebody who wears a military uniform. And without a doubt, our veterans have earned these thanks and recognition, and it is important to pay tribute to those men and women on each Veterans Day every year. In order to fully appreciate their service, in my opinion, you have to have an understanding of what service means. And I believe that the best way to honor those who have served our country overseas is by embracing your own service and defining what service means to you what you can do in your communities right here at home. I read something a few years back that stated something only like 4 out of 10 high school seniors are able to join today's armed forces due to a variety of qualifying standards, whether they are educational standards, physical requirements, or legal problems. These factors keep many from joining the military. So usually this figure, 6 of 10 graduating seniors would not be able to serve their country if we define it as military service. Similarly, nearly all of you are too young to join the military today. Does that mean that you don't have an opportunity or obligation to serve your country? I'd like you to think of service to your community, state, and nation in terms of what you can accomplish, what you can impact. Mr. article talked about service above self, and citizens of all ages can serve each other in our country. Give back to your community by being an upstanding citizen, while helping those less fortunate, keeping your parks and your communities clean. Help find elderly veterans, spend some time with them, hearing their stories. They clearly have some very interesting stories to share with you. Discover a cause you're passionate about and get involved. Honor your relatives. Listen to and respect your teachers, especially Mrs. McDonald, especially all of the teachers. Drugs and gangs are things that tear our communities apart, and they are a disservice to our country. They're a disservice to the sacrifices our men and women have made. So be a good citizen. Express your goodwill to your fellow Americans and give back to your communities. In my opinion, these are the things we can do to honor and thank our veterans the most. They put themselves in danger in faraway lands to defend our opportunity to enjoy freedom here. So I'd like to close by asking all of us to pay tribute to all veterans who devoted their lives in the defense of this great nation. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David McDonald, and I want to thank both of our speakers, and I hope that that message of service resonates with you, because you don't have to be a veteran to serve. All of us can serve. And I hope that you take some time throughout the course of the day to not only thank those who have served our country, but also to reflect on ways that you, as an individual, can serve your community, your family, your school. There are many opportunities that you are given, but we live in a world where your success really depends on your ability to make your own opportunities. At this time, Ms. Lumsden and Ms. Kozlowski will lead our choir in My Country 'Tis of Thee. But before they start, I want to take a moment to provide you with some information. My Country 'Tis of Thee served as America's national anthem for nearly 100 years. This melody, as we know so well, has European roots, but the lyrics that are sung are American in their heritage. The words were written by Samuel Francis Smith when he was a student in seminary. The 4 stanzas of lyrics invoke the history, pride, and beauty of our great nation. The song was performed first in 1831 in celebration of Independence Day. Today's performance is arranged by Michael Sweeney. Please enjoy My Country 'Tis of Thee. will now begin our conclusion of today's ceremony with a traditional 21-gun salute. We will ask that you rise after the playing of hats for the retirement of colors. I would like to take a moment to remind our students that the purpose of a 21-gun salute is to honor those who have given their lives in service of our country. It is a gesture of respect, and we fully expect all of our students to act accordingly. We ask that you do not react to the fires of the rounds, which we realize can be quite loud. We ask that you remain silent throughout this portion of the assembly as taps has played, and again expect that you will rise for the retirement of the colors. Thank you. may be seated. As we wrap up today's ceremony, I would like to take a moment to thank our visiting guests once again, along with Mrs. McDonald, Mr. Bianchi, Mr. Ashbeck, Mr. Colmorgan, Ms. Lumsden, and Ms. Kozlowski for their assistance in organizing today's assembly. I would like the band and choir students to be thanked and recognized for their moving performances today, so please give them a round of applause. I also want to thank all of the guests that have joined us here today from the community, our honored veterans and their family members. And lastly, I would like to commend you, the student body, for exceptional behavior throughout today's assembly. Thank you for helping us to create a culture of respect, responsibility, and service here at Jack Young Middle School. As we dismiss today, students are reminded, when you're asked to exit the bleachers, to do so safely and slowly. We will be returning to our TAs, and we will remain there until approximately 9:40. We will announce when it's time for you to move on to your first hour class. We will run a 2-hour delayed start schedule for the remainder of the day. We will begin by dismissing those students and those students only who are seated on the main floor. Next, we will dismiss those students who are seated on the east end of the bleachers. That's this end for those of you who don't know which direction. So anybody from about